You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop-up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, I drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
In uncertain times, we could use someone to lean on. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma will stand by you with plan options to fit your budget. If you've recently lost your job, had a baby, or moved, you can still get the healthcare coverage you and your family need. Financial help may be available for those who qualify. Call 855-452-BLUE or visit hereforyouok.com to see if you're eligible to enroll. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, a division of Healthcare Service Corporation, a mutual legal reserve company.
Get to Kohl's and take an extra 25% off Adidas for the entire family. Plus, with an extra 15% off, get up to 50% off the Big One bedding. And save on Nike athletic shoes for kids. Plus, get Kohl's Cash. Plus, limited contact store drive-up. Right now at Kohl's and Kohl's.com.
Offers valid July 17th through July 26th. 15% offer with promo code BIG SAVINGS. 25% off Adidas. Offers and coupons do not apply. Select styles. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of He Said, She Said. I am your hostess for the evening, Aggie, and with me is my wonderful producer and co-host for the evening, Rick. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, I'm kind of thinking for November, maybe we need to mix in some Thanksgiving-related stuff, maybe some turkeys gobbling, I don't know.
Yeah, we should. We should, because isn't that next? No,
yeah,
it's not next week. It's the week after that.
Yeah.
Woo, okay. Yeah, don't scare me, because I'm like, oh my God, I need to go start defrosting stuff.
Yeah, no, you still got time. It's like a couple weeks away still. But
yeah,
okay,
cool.
It's already November 10th. I woke up this morning. I was like, how the hell is it already November 10th? Like I thought life was.
Yes.
I thought life was supposed to go slower when you retired. What the hell?
No, it kind of speeds up, and then it kind of like stagnates for a little while, and then it speeds up again. It's not a constant. I've noticed that.
Well,
it's not a constant.
It doesn't help that I don't know how to sit still either. So, you know, as you know, there's been lots of things that I've been researching, because I shared some stuff with you last night. You could tell from our text exchange that your mind was blown. And then,
yes, it was.
So I'm working on getting that together, and then I also have for the last probably about 3 years really kind of been doing like health and wellness exploration, because there's been lots of things that I've kind of wanted to look into, like Eastern medicine related. Everything the doctors are like, yeah, that shit don't work. Guess what? A lot of it does. And that'll probably be one of the first books I put out, is kind of, you know, this is what I did. If it works for you, great. This is where you can get it. Like, as an example, I found, and I've known about this for a while, I just never thought to try it before. One of the things, if you're a guy, if you have pretty much nothing but belly fat, it usually means one of two things. You're either developing insulin resistance, or your testosterone levels are starting to drop. Ashwagandha is a lifesaver, and it's cheap. Go buy some. I've dropped 10 pounds in 2 weeks.
I've been taking it too for hormone therapy, and it seems to have been helping. A woman of my age starts going through menopause and gets the hot flashes, and it has helped quite a bit. My hot flashes have lessened quite a bit. So
I mean, I know that it would work for you. I'm kind of surprised that, because the reason it works so well for men is it actually helps get rid of the stress hormone cortisol, which is what kills testosterone. So it actually boosts your testosterone. Now it may work for women, I guess, in much the same way, because I think cortisol kills your estrogen too. So that may be why.
Yes, it does. So that's why it's been helping. You know, so I don't find myself lying prone on the tile floor, dying from heat stroke.
But yeah,
No,
but yeah, no, it was just one of those things where, you know, I kept seeing all these things where, and you know, all the videos with the totally ripped dudes that are like, this diet doesn't work, this diet doesn't work, and if you watch this video, I'll tell you what does work. So then you watch the video, and right when they get to the part where they tell you what's supposed to work, it's please send me your credit card information so I can charge you $500. How about fuck you?
yeah, I know. Those are really, really bad. No, I talked to people that are outside of the Western medicine field because Eastern medicine relies on a totally different philosophy. I mean, it's not that they ignore Western medicine; it's just that they add onto it with the old stuff, you know. So, I have several friends that practice Eastern medicine, and they were the ones that told me about ashwagandha. They told me about, don't ignore your D3. And I'm like, my Anhudica? What? Is vitamin D, but D3. That's the one you need to take. And I'm like, oh, so I'm writing all this stuff down, like going, what else? And magnesium, you need that. But take the one that's all three, not just one. You need to take all three. And I'm like, okay, So I've been taking all of these over-the-counter supplements, and I have noticed that my hot flashes have decreased in frequency and in strength as well. So whatever it is, it's working, and I'm going to keep taking it until, whatever.
Yeah. So, and this I feel bad about, because when I first started taking them, I told everybody I was going to kind of blog about my experience on my Substack, and then things got really crazy, and I started planning on leaving work and everything else, so I haven't done it. The one thing I will say is it took quite a while for me to notice a difference with the vitamins that I've been taking. I mean, they're not even technically vitamins; it's just a bunch of ground up fruits and vegetables in pills. And for some reason, all of a sudden, the name escapes me.
Is that the one that they plug?
Yeah.
The green and the red bottle?
The green and the red. For some reason, I can't think of the name of them. I will say that it took me having to suspend my subscription for about a month when everything kind of fell apart with getting the retirement started and everything, for me to realize the difference that they were making. And then when I started taking them again, the other thing I realized is those things basically take the place of one of my meals, because by the time I take them, I'm not hungry anymore in like 10 minutes. So I got to thinking about it. I was like, for $60 a month, if I'm skipping one meal a day, holy crap, that's cheap. It's like, if I can, because yeah, literally, because I just started taking
Balance of Nature.
Yeah, Balance of Nature. Those are the ones.
Thank you.
Yeah. For some reason, I could not think of them at all. But yeah, that was, so it took me actually stopping them for about a month and a half, because I could suspend it for up to 6 weeks, and that's how long it took for me to get the money situation squared back away again. And it took me stopping them to realize the difference that they were making. Plus, I then noticed that I eat less when I take them, because normally what I'll do, when I'm already doing intermittent fasting anyway, which is another good thing. If you haven't tried it yet, you probably should. Your body is actually best designed to burn food from about noon to 8. So it's not usually a good idea to eat too much earlier, because unless you're really, really active. I mean, if you've got a job where you're going all day, it doesn't really matter when you eat. But if you're sedentary like I was, you need to control when you eat and how much you consume. So if you can find something to, like I said, for $60 a month, basically takes the place of, 7 meals in a week?
Mm-hmm.
Shit, $3 a meal, that's already $21 in a week you're saving, so you do the math.
Yep, this is true.
And who here eats for $3? I was a fat kid, I don't eat for $3. I'm a less fat kid now, which I'm kind of, I'm happy about, because it's helping other things too. Because like I said, at the height of COVID, I was up to almost 330, and then with the divorce and everything, and I started trying to take these one set of supplements, and I thought they were working really well. It turns out it was mostly just the stress, because I was never eating. So I dropped down to like 260, and then when the stress was gone, all of a sudden the weight started coming back, and I'm like, what? So then I got back up to like 297 about 2 months, two and a half months ago. And when the scale started creeping up to like 300, that's when I started doing research, and I'm like, look, there has to be a way for me to figure out what I can do to help supplement my diet, because let's face it, the Western diet sucks. It's why most of us, unless we still have our teenage metabolism are not skinny. And that's when I started researching the different things, and then found all these. Hey, I'll tell you what to do, but you got to make you $500. I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out, and I did. So. Anyway, that's not what this show's about. I don't even know why I started talking about it. Whatever.
No, but it was a good primer. That's kind of cool. I mean, health is always a good topic, no matter what we're talking about.
So
whatever podcast.
Oh, now I remember why I brought it up, because that's actually probably going to be the first book that I put out. Is kind of my journey through it, how I can save you like $3,000, because I'm going to tell you all the things that are behind paywalls elsewhere for probably about maybe $10-15 if you want it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because the other one's gonna the other one. I have things I have to test. I'm excited about the other stuff I'm working on, but I haven't been able to test them out much yet. So I want to test them out before I go, hey, do this. And everybody's like, it didn't fucking work. I'm like, sorry. But yeah. So that book will probably, this one will probably come out. I'm going to try to shoot for maybe March or April. And then, because that gets me through the holidays, then I can just sit down and start writing it. And then, because it won't be very long anyway. And then the other one will probably come out maybe beginning of next year, assuming we're not glowing in the dark by then. Just saying.
I'm kind of hoping we're not glowing in the dark. That would be bad.
I mean, I know this is completely off topic, but is it weird to anybody else that, growing up in like the 70s and the 80s, they had toys like the glowworm? It's kind of like they were just getting you ready for the fact that you might eventually glow in the dark one day.
Yes. I'm at the point where I might go out thrifting, seeing if I could find one of those old school desks, because apparently they would protect you from a nuclear blast, an earthquake, all sorts of shiznit. So,
dude, that was your earthquake shelter, your fallout shelter, your tornado shelter, your flood shelter.
Exactly.
It protected you from everything.
So I'm thinking about going and get one.
What you really do is you go find one, and then you put it on like Facebook Marketplace for like $5 million and list all the reasons why it's worth $5 million, just to see what somebody says.
You remember the tragedy with the submersible that imploded?
Yes.
While going to look at the Titanic, right? Some guy around here, and I took a screenshot, actually posted it for sale for $250,000, saying only good for one trip. Don't scam me. I'm on to you. That kind of thing. And I was just like, dude, it's too soon. No. Way too soon.
It wasn't even good for one trip. It was good for half the trip.
Yeah, that's true. And he said it was a little dented. It was awful.
Yeah, don't even get me started about the Titanic, because every time anybody brings that up, I'm screaming this sentence in my head. Damn it, Rose, that door was big enough for the both of you.
Yes, it was. That bitch condemned that guy to a watery grave. We all know this. She was extremely, extremely selfish. I was like, and the thing is, I'm not even a physicist, and I knew that door would hold both of them.
I mean,
but no.
Yeah. I mean, he at least could have, hung off of it with his legs off, like she was.
Well, the thing is, had she taken her fucking seat in one of the boats, he could have used the door just fine. But no.
Oh, see, there's something I didn't even think of. I forgot all the women were supposed to be getting on the lifeboat.
She had a chance, but she turned away from it. And of course, her mom's screaming for her and whatever. I'm like, I know way too much about this stupid movie, having only seen it once. And I don't think I even sat through the whole thing.
Well, and this is actually a perfect segue into documentaries. And this is not one of the ones on my list, but since it's come up, there's a documentary. Well, actually, a couple of different documentaries that put a really weird twist on the whole Titanic thing. Like, first of all, that it actually wasn't the Titanic. The original Titanic had already sunk. That was one. And then the other was that the Titanic was sunk specifically because everyone that was all of the handful of rich people that were opposed to starting a centralized bank in America were all on that ship at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but Titanic was actually one of 3 sister ships.
Yep.
Can you name the other 2? I'm sure you can.
Actually, I cannot off the top of my head, to be honest. I mean, I could have looked.
One was the Britannic, and the other one was the Olympic.
Yeah, well, I should have remembered the Olympic, because that's actually the conspiracy theory was that the original Titanic had already sank, so they basically renamed the Olympic the Titanic, and then it sank.
And then it sank.
So much for the unsinkable ships.
Well, you know, it's like, this is the unfortunate thing about people who design and everything. They don't look for the minutiae that would sink a ship, you know, and that's, you need people in the trades to tell you, oh no, this is wrong and this is why, you know, but they seldom do that. I mean, everybody knows Frank Lloyd Wright, and he was such a great designer and everything, but what a lot of people don't know is that he did not understand the physics of building. He didn't. He could design stuff, but he didn't know structural engineering. So there was always this massive amount of engineers behind him trying to correct everything that he was building so that it would be safe. I mean, it's just everybody knows Frank Lloyd Wright, but they don't understand that Frank Lloyd Wright was not the one that was making everything structurally sound. Just because you can design it doesn't mean that it's going to be structurally safe. So, I always crack up about that because, you know, my teacher actually told me about that when I was in, I think it was a sophomore. And she was like, yeah, everybody loves him and nobody understands that the dude could not build a building to save his life. Well, anyway, moving on.
Well, I think it's kind of, you know, just common sense. You would think the person that was designing the building would know enough about how to, or the boat for that matter, would know enough about design to keep them safe. I guess that is not a safe assumption. Just saying.
Nope. You'd be surprised.
But yeah, I thought that was an interesting little tie-in to actually get us back on the topic, because yeah, there are actually a couple of different documentaries about the Titanic that take things in really dark directions.
Really dark.
Yep.
Anyway, moving on. So tonight we are talking about our favorite documentaries, and I did not realize how many documentaries I've enjoyed throughout my life until I started trying to narrow down the list. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this one. I remember that one. And the weird thing with me is most of my documentaries I have a very Catholic taste in documentaries. It's very eclectic, you know, not Catholic, not as in Catholic Church, but Catholic as in very varied. And so
I've not heard that used in that way as an adjective before, so that's a new one for me.
Yeah, it's actually it is actually an adjective. So, you know, so I was trying to narrow this down. I finally narrowed it down to 3, but I have 2 others that are, you know, in contention. So, but anyway, so how many do you have on your list?
Actually, I have too many to mention on my list, so I kind of narrowed it down. I have categories, so I have documentary movies, and then I have documentary type series. So, because I love documentaries. I've seen, as an example, I've seen there's a documentary put out by Jeff Dunham. I've seen a couple of documentaries that were done about Robin Williams, Richard Pryor. I mean, when you were like, I have 3, I was like, holy crap, I gotta whittle it down. I've seen every JFK related documentary ever.
The weird thing is that some of the documentaries that I watch, you would not think I would have watched them simply because they don't fit the Aggie mold. Okay, but
wait, there's an Aggie mold. Are we sure?
Well, you'll see when I divulge my list. So anyway, so should we do it from the bottom to the number 1?
Sure.
Okay, so you go first.
Hang on, I'm trying to get back to my list. I put it on my phone, now I can't find it. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, so my number 3, was actually one that was actually a recent one that I only watched because Ordy had brought it up, and it happened to be one of my recent favorites because it's about my current favorite version of Star Trek. What We Left Behind, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It's a documentary about the series itself. It goes into detail about some of how they got where they got, and it even does kind of a mock-up run of the first episode if they were actually going to be able to do a season 8. So it's really interesting. If you haven't seen it yet, I do recommend it.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's actually awesome. Like there's a running joke in there that if they had made the show about 5 years later, that Bashir and Garrick would have wound up being lovers.
What?
And then I'm like,
really?
no. If it would have been anybody between the triangle between Bashir O'Brien and Garrick O'Brien would have won. I'm just saying. Because there's even a point in one of the episodes, and I think it's towards like the second to last or the last episode when everybody's starting to get into the saying goodbye to each other mode, and Bashir looks at O'Brien about something, and O'Brien says something smart back, and he's like, "You know you love me." He said, "Yeah, I do. You love me more than your wife. Admit it."
That's cute. I did enjoy. There was a documentary, and it was Tasha Yar, Denise Crosby. Remember that one, Trekkies?
Yeah, I've actually
or
seen that one
Trekkers,
too.
I think it was. And that one was really interesting. That's actually on my honorable mentions list. So I think any documentaries that involve the Star Trek universe would be absolutely epic. And I don't care what ship, I don't care which show. I think they would all be really fun to watch.
Well, it's because it was such a trailblazing thing. I mean, everybody forgets that during the time frame when Gene Roddenberry came up with this concept, science fiction was all campy kid shows. That was it. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. That's actually one of the reasons why one of the more popular writers of Star Trek left, because he kept trying to bring campy shit in, and Roddenberry was like, no, fuck you. So he left. There was like this whole thing with Kang and the Klingons that was supposed to be like a recurring thing, and because the guy that was trying to run that story arc left, they killed it. That's why, if you'll notice, between in season 2, when they really first started getting into the Klingons, they made Kang look different than the rest of the Klingons, because they wanted, they had a plan to make him basically the Klingon version of Kirk, and they were going to continually go up against each other over and over and over again. But at the end of season 2, the dude that came up with that story arc idea left, and Roddenberry was like, yeah, nope, we're not doing that anymore.
He was such an egotistical bastard. He really was.
He was the Steve Jobs of science fiction.
Yes, I know. Still, he had an ego.
But yeah, there are. I think there are at least 4 or 5 different documentaries.
Well, there was one there's one that's attached to one of the ones on my list, and I'll bring that up when I get to the list, I guess.
Sure.
So.
But yeah,
anyway,
the other thing I love is pretty much anybody that's related to Star Trek that was like one of the top billed peoples eventually puts out a memoir. Those are fun to read too. Patrick Stewart just put his out. I haven't read it yet, but I want to.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, if
I would love to read his stuff.
I think he titled it "Making It So," if I remember right. He actually talks about. And this is just from the excerpt that I've read when I realized it was coming out. He actually talks about the time that he basically lost it with everybody because, he's, stoic, British, Broadway, serious, British version of Broadway anyway, gotta be serious all the time. So Yar and Crosby and Frakes were just cutting up one day, and he just lost it and stormed off the set. Fucking went into his trailer, just sat there sulking. He's like, and they made fun of me from that day on every time I got too serious.
I think one of the, some of those actors have taken their roles, and their roles have become very iconic, I guess, for lack of a better term. But they've also run with that role in a humorous way. Like, I did not know this, but there is a competition, a Riker competition.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To see who can do the best Riker impersonation, sitting, standing, running, doing whatever. And Frakes didn't know about this, and they told him about it. He's like, he was like, you've got to be kidding! I need to watch this, and he got involved, and he just it sucked him in, and he was like, they're amazing. These people do a better Riker than I did.
Well, that's what made him laugh so hard. It made his wife was laughing even harder because he directed the crossover episode for between Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks this year, and the Ensign Boimler, he was hanging out and he actually, I guess he fainted, and at some point after they had checked him out, they put him in the captain's quarters, and of course Pike's got his saddle in there. So he's like, it won't possibly hurt the timeline if I sit on this thing, would it? No, it could. So then he's like, I gotta do it. And then so I'm watching The Ready Room, which is a Will Wheaton show where he talks about all the stuff Star Trek on Paramount Plus. And the Frakes is sitting there, and so is the guy that plays Boimler. And he's like, and I had to do it because I knew you were just sitting right there. I was like, the guy that does this is directing this episode. So he just hikes his leg as high as he can to jump on the saddle and yells, Riker! Because every scene you ever see with Jonathan Frakes sitting down in a chair in Star Trek, he's hiking his leg over the chair.
He is.
And it jokingly started being called the Riker maneuver on the set.
That's precious. I mean, it's such a joy to see them actually still embracing that character arc and enjoying the fact that so many fans have run with it. It's really, I mean, there was a time when, Shatner didn't like it.
Shatner still really doesn't like it. It didn't make my list because I couldn't remember the name of it. But one of the documentaries about the original series kind of outlined, and I just remember bits and pieces of it because it's been so long since I've watched it. It outlined the difference between like the named or the I guess the senior officer cast and the junior officer cast, and they were like, if it wasn't for DeVorest Kelly, it's like Chekhov and Sulu and Uhura wouldn't have even felt like they were included in anything. Because Spock was always just, and so was Kirk. But that's one reason why as I've seen this go on, it's like every other crew has become a family, and that is amazing to me. I mean, you see them like you like when nobody's around, somebody will snap a picture. Look, they're still hanging out together, and it's just them being them, and I'm like, that is really cool.
It is. It's kind of neat. All right, let's see. So it's my turn for my number 3, right?
Yes.
We're still
on number 3 because we keep getting sidetracked.
Okay, so we always do this. So my number 3 is a documentary. It came out in 2014, and it's called The 7-5. And it is about, quite possibly, the dirtiest cop in New York Police Department history. His name was Michael Dowd, and he was attached to the 75th Precinct out in New York City. And he was a pretty rough guy. Because that area, the 75th Precinct, was in a really rough neighborhood. So, I want to say it was in Brooklyn. He was a pretty rough cop to begin with, but he used his position to build this huge network. He stole money, he dealt drugs, he was, chop shops, everything. I mean, he built it from the ground up as a police officer. And it led to probably the biggest scandal in NYPD history. And, he served time. His partner served time. His wife served time. I mean, it was just And then they came together to make the documentary about this, and they interviewed him and everything. And I remember a friend of mine who is a private detective out in Albany. He recommended it on Twitter, and I went and I watched it, and it was gritty, it was riveting, it was an amazing story. And I replied to his tweet later, telling him that was an incredible documentary. No lie, it was not something I expected, but it was the amount of corruption that went on for years was incredible, especially under the NYPD nose, And the guy, Michael Dowd, actually has a Twitter account, and he liked my tweet and thanked me for watching the documentary. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. But it was a really cool account about how back in the 80s, this one guy built this criminal network working as a cop in the roughest neighborhood in New York City. I mean, I can't even tell you how weird it was to watch this going, and nobody caught on. And the weird thing was, nobody was catching on because the 75th precinct was in such a rough area that the rest of the precincts just let it be, So nobody was checking really what was going on in the 75th until it started affecting other precincts. And that's when they got involved. That's how it happened. So, but yeah, I highly recommend it. If you're into the whole dirty cop type documentary, this one was a really good one.
Sounds like it. I haven't actually seen that one before. I'll have to look into it.
Yeah. It's called The 7-5, and the first time I saw it was on HBO, so I'm pretty sure you can catch it on, and you can do a search, and it might be on Prime or Hulu or something.
I'll look in a second just to see. All right, so my number 2 is actually fairly new. I found it by accident because there was one of those times Gracie and Anna were playing in my room, and I had YouTube on because Baby Shark, and
of course
they still have their one's about to be 4 in like a week, the other one's about to be 4 in a few months. They still haven't outgrown Baby Shark or freaking Cocomelon. Oh my god, I'm so sick. Cocomelon. Yeah, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of hearing about that stuff. I almost had Gracie to the point where she was at least singing Disney songs, and then Anna started hanging out again, and now she's back to Cocomelon and Baby Shark. Anyway, so I found this one by accident, and I just watched it the other day. There's actually on YouTube a documentary about Al Capone, and it's a shorter documentary, but it's amazing. It kind of goes into the details of how he became who he was and all the different things that he did. And yeah, it's only there's actually a couple. The one that I recommend is just the one that says Al Capone Scarface, and it's the full documentary. Then there's another one that's a little bit shorter. They've cut some of it out, and it's Al Capone, A History of Chicago, and the infamous mob boss. One came out on the 17th of October, the other on the 19th. But I actually haven't watched the other one yet. When I was pulling up the titles to write it down, I was like, wait, there's another one? I missed that one. But yeah, so that was actually really good. And honestly, it's one of those things where if you're just kind of looking for something to turn on because you don't have anything else to watch, it takes up about as much time as an episode of TV without commercials, because it's only like 43 and a half minutes. So, but it's pretty cool.
But it's very,
like
tells you the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, all they know is that he had vaults that were empty, and he went to prison for tax evasion. That's pretty much what everybody knows about Al Capone.
Pretty much what everybody knows, yeah.
So that would be kind of a cool one. I've always been interested in that, the stories about mobsters, because they do have a certain code. And I come from an area in Puerto Rico where that code is sacrosanct, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's like you don't mess with the mafia, you respect the mafia will respect you back, that kind of thing. So for me, that does sound very interesting. But I'll have to check that one out. Al Capone on YouTube.
Yep.
I'm making notes. I'm writing notes. Okay, so my number 2 is a documentary that I think Orty would really enjoy because, he's into movies and stuff like that with Brad. I think this would be a really cool, fun thing to talk about during Culture Shift or, Disasters in the Making or whatever. But it's called That Guy Who Was in That Thing. And that is a documentary about the working actor. Now, everybody knows that you either become very, very famous, Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro up there, right? Yeah. Or you fail and then you go do something else. But this is about those that actually work day to day, character situations, as character actors, trying to make it not as big names, but as names that are solid and can be, will work on the small screen, doing, an episode here, 2 episodes there, that kind of thing. And it was really fun to watch because a lot of the people that were there had finally kind of made it into the small screen as, bigger, I guess, bigger names in the small screen, I should say. And one of them was Bruce Davison, which actually I was surprised to find him on that list because to me, he is a big name. But when you look at his body of work, it's mostly small screen, not big screen. He tried making it in the big screen. As a matter of fact, he did, the Auntie Mame musical with Lucille Ball. Mm-hmm. He played the son, and then the one that a lot of people they may remember or may not, but there was an after school special called The Wave. He played the teacher. And that was the first time that I saw him. I saw him in Auntie Mame right after that. But that movie made a big impression on me. And I don't know if anybody else remembers it or not, but that was possibly one of the best after-school specials that ABC ever put out. And I was kind of surprised to find him on that list. But, like I said, he said his body of work, it was mostly small screen stuff, not really big in movies, even though he was well known in movies. Another one was Xander Berkeley. Everybody knows him, but they know him by his face, not by his name, right? Stanley Kamel, Timothy Odmanson, who was, Carlton in Psych. He worked for years doing bit parts and everything until he got Psych. And that's when he got big. But he was talking about how, there were days that he would be out for 8 hours trying to find a job, and come home and have cereal for dinner because that's all he could afford. Rick Worthy was another one. And I'm sure you know him as Imhotep in Stargate SG-1. That guy.
Drink.
That guy.
Got a drink, Chad.
And, he remembers all he had was a bike. He had to sell all of his belongings in order to pay the rent. He got a call to be on General Hospital. And so he ended up having to get up early enough so he could walk there because he had to sell his bike. And he walks up and they're like, "Why aren't you in a car?" He says, I don't own a vehicle. I had to give it up. But by the grace of God, he got that job and he was able to, live paycheck to paycheck for a while until he was established long enough that he could get another gig and get another gig and get another. But this was a documentary about all of these faces that we know on TV and in small parts in movies, character actors that we adore, but we don't know the background as to how they became the working actor.
But yes,
and that's...
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, but I got kind of excited because that's one of the things that I've been looking into because, everybody sees, who you are by the end of the journey, and everybody's like, oh, look how easy it was for him. You don't know Like you said,
No,
he was going
there's
home and eating
such a
cereal, can't
struggle.
afford a car. But that's just it. If it's something that you really, really want to do, you go all in and you keep doing it till you either die or until you make it. And that's part of that's part of why I've done what I've done over the last few months.
That's why this documentary for me, it was so amazing, because it does show you the side of acting, the side of working in acting that you never get to see, and how difficult it is, because acting is very niche. You have your big name celebrities, and I'm telling you, if Rick Worthy were to walk into a bookstore, I would be able to recognize him, but I doubt anybody else would.
Well, so
same thing with Stanley Kamel, God rest his soul. But it was the same thing. He would walk into a bookstore, and the thing is, he had a solid career as a character actor in the small screen, and it wasn't until Monk, where he was the psychiatrist, that people started noticing, oh, this guy can act. And unfortunately, he ended up dying like in I want to say the 6th season.
Yeah, it was towards the end of the run, because they made a big deal about it on Monk.
It took him. He was 57 when he passed away, but he started in the business when he was 16. And it wasn't until he was 50 that people started, oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
But he had been around for so long doing smaller roles and bit parts here, the commercials, whatever. It was amazing, because I'm watching this going, I didn't know that was his name, but I know him from this, that, and the other thing. Well, it was really cool.
Well, so here's an interesting little side note, because I found this out by accident not too long ago, and this is another common misconception. Like, normally everybody's like, TV actors, small potatoes. Once you get into the movies, you've made it, especially if you're on a recurring role, or if you get something big like Dumb and Dumber, which was one of the stupidest films ever, but became like this cult classic for weird people. Jim Carrey made $4.5 million on that picture. Do you know what the guy that played the other guy made? $40,000.
Get out.
$40,000 was what he got paid for that entire movie, and Jim Carrey's over here making $4.5 million.
I get that name recognition is the big draw when you're making a film and everything, but sometimes you take a chance. Like Jurassic Park is probably the best example of this. They did not get big names for this film because they couldn't afford it. And, you have Sam Neill, who was a very established actor. But a lot of people here didn't really know him outside of, The Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, he was basically the Obi-Wan Kenobi of that movie.
You had Laura Dern, who most people wouldn't know outside of Blue Velvet. You had Jeff Goldblum, who most people didn't know outside of Earth Girls Are Easy. So at that time, all of these actors were more secondary tier. That movie catapulted them. It really did. And so taking a chance like that can pay off. But if you're not sure that it will do that well, you want to get a big name so that you can have a big box office draw. So, but I mean, it is a huge disparity between $40 million and $40,000.
Yeah, I mean, I read that and I couldn't believe that. I was like, dude, I guarantee you they have contracts where they can't tell people what they're making, because if that dude found out Jim Carrey was making like 100 times what he was making, he probably would have stabbed him on the set.
I would have stabbed him on the set, and I would have had no skin in that game.
Oh, speaking of the Stargate SG-1 drinking game, which unfortunately you'll have to drink again because I said the name, I've come up with an idea. I'm going to mix together just a few seconds of the intro theme and then the old dude from Airplane. I picked a really bad day to stop drinking, and we're going to play that every time that has to be done.
We're going to do Lloyd Bridges? Oh, yeah. My God, that's funny.
I don't know. It just kind of occurred to me. I was like, well, as often as that comes up, I really need some sort of a sounder for that. And I'm like, why not just, that would be cool.
We should.
It fits our crew and our chat to a T. So I will probably work on that sometime this next week.
So anyway, to wind up about that particular documentary, it actually spawned the second documentary, similar name, That Gal Who Was in That Thing, with same thing but with women actors, and there was going to be a third one, which I found interesting, but is now going to be done in a different way. And it was That Guy Who Was in That Thing, Trek Stars. But now it's being redone. It has become The Stars Above, and that's an episode of Center Seat, 55 Years of Star Trek. It's narrated by Gates McFadden. Everybody knows her. And it's about the small names and the big names that were both in all of the Star Trek franchise, like Ronnie Cox and James Cromwell, and then, smaller names like Robert Beltran, who is one of the better known Hispanic actors. Also, if you saw Night of the Comet, I love him in that. But, Catherine Hicks, who was in Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, and, just Christopher Lloyd is in it. He was, what's his name? Search for Spock.
Was it? It wasn't. I can't. What?
Why
can't I?
It wasn't Gang.
No, that's what I want to keep saying, but I don't think that was it. Hang on.
Yeah, see, but there's a lot of smaller names and bigger names that have been attached to the Star Trek franchise. So that was going to be the third installment of this documentary series, but instead it was folded into the 55 Years of Star Trek one. So
it was Commander Kruge. That's what it was.
Kruge. It was with a K. I knew it was with a K.
Most Klingon names are with Ks. Kind of like with Vulcans. Most of their names. At one point, it was men were named with S's and women were named with T's, and then they just said, "Fuck it, we'll name them whatever."
I got pissed off about that because when Valeris came on, I was like, okay, I understood why Saavik had her name. But Valeris with a V, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I was pissed. Honest to God, I was pissed when my friend who worked for Paramount gave me the screener.
Uh-huh.
I took it home and I'm watching it and I'm going, I literally stopped the VHS. Valeris, what the shit? And I'm talking to my college roommate, who was also my roommate at the time. I was like, this is wrong. It should not be Valeris. It should be T something. I don't understand why they're doing this. Why? How could they change it? And she's looking at me going, can we just watch the rest of the movie? I had like a 20-minute interval of just bitching about the fact that her name was Valeris. I was that upset.
Nice.
But then, I was like, I didn't write this, so whatever, and I pushed play. So
whatever, I do what I want.
Right? But yeah, you had to bring, you had to pow, and then, like I said, Saavik, there was a reason why her name started with an S instead of a T. She was half Romulan, half Vulcan. So the Romulan side was her father, and thus that's why her name starts with an S instead of with a T. I know. I know way too much about Saavik. But anyway, go on. I'm done with my number 2.
All right. So my number 2 is actually a list of documentaries. Because like I said, I've watched pretty much every JFK related documentary ever. So I was.
Wait. Are you number 2 or number 1?
Oh wait,
I think you're number 1.
I guess I am number 1 now, huh? Anyway, so yeah, I guess my number 1 then is a list of documentaries. I'm not used to going first. Just saying. But so, you may not get to look at it much because I have an ad blocker on mine and I'm not going in to turn it off, but I got cranky. But this actually lists pretty much every, and I just dropped it in the chat. It lists pretty much every JFK documentary known to man. My number 1 standout from that is JFK 2. If you haven't seen that yet, you really need to watch it. It actually makes the case for the Bush family being involved in what happened to JFK. It's kind of creepy.
What?
Yeah. It's kind of creepy. Because, yeah, everybody seems to forget that Bush 41 was a CIA dude for a long time. Long time. But yeah, so then there, like I said, there's a whole list in there. The Garrison tapes, and like I was gonna kind of run through it, but it's not working for me now, and I don't even remember having an ad blocker installed on this computer, so I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway,
that sounds really, interesting, because one of the documentaries that I watched not too long ago was MLK FBI, which was about
that's one that I want to watch. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and I was talking to a friend of mine who used to be in the FBI, used being the operative word, and is there a lot of veracity to this documentary? And he told me, let me watch it. I'll get back to you. So like a week later, he's back online. He's like, there's not much I can refute on that. He just left it at that. I was like, okay. So, alrighty, gonna have to check that one out, because I found it really interesting.
Okay, so I got everything to work. So just to kind of give everybody kind of a bit of an overview, because I've already told you the gist of it, but I'm just going to read the little thumbnail about it here. The highly provocative and controversial JFK2, The Bush Connection, takes viewers on a journey into the murky world of political connections and secret power plays, with a focus on the alleged involvement of the Bush family, particularly George H.W. Bush, in President Kennedy's death. Through an exhaustive examination of government documents, eyewitness statements, and news archives footage, JFK2 presents a theory so shocking, which it really it didn't shock me, but a friend of mine that was watching with me was like, holy crap, it could change the way history is written. And you know me, if I can get documentary and conspiracy theory in the same thing, I'm down.
Yeah. That would be that'd be kind of cool. I mean, I always found it really interesting that JFK was assassinated, RFK was also assassinated, but Teddy, they left him alone. So do with that info what you will.
Well, I mean, Ted, they had blackmail on Teddy. They didn't have to get rid of him.
Very true. Very true.
I mean, if we're gonna go down that road, the reason they never killed him off was because if he ever stepped out of line, they would just destroy him anyway.
I just, I just don't think that he could do any damage, and he wasn't going to do anything past being senator. His entire political career was halted with the incident in Chappaquiddick. So,
well, I mean, I don't honestly think he had any more aspirations than what he already was anyway. He was basically just trying to use the coattails of the name to get lead.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking dead on.
So,
all right.
Anyway, so what's your number one?
My number one, and this is the one that might surprise a lot of people, because it's very outside of what most people know about me. But it is by far my favorite documentary of all time. And it is called Do You Believe in Miracles? The Story of the 1980 U.S. Hockey Team. It came out in 2001. And it was quite possibly the best sports documentaries that I've ever watched. And I have watched my share, thanks to ESPN has their own branch of sports documentaries and all that. But this one was very special to me because we came to the States in 1976, and it was right around the time of the Summer Olympics. And so that was nice and everything, but we had missed the Winter Olympics, because at the time they were all on the same year. So they were not bumped like every 2 years now, like they are now. So we had missed, I didn't know that there was a Winter Olympics at all. I had no idea. And so we watched the Summer Olympics, and that was fun, and blah, 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 whatever. But then in 1980, there was that huge boycott of the Summer Olympics, and we were hosting the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. And my dad came home one day, and he wanted to watch what was going on, and he turns on the TV, and the game is about to start. And a lot of people think that this was a game for the medal, and it was not. It was a game to advance to the gold medal round. And it was the U.S. hockey team, which was comprised of college kids, going against the behemoth that is, or was, the Soviet team. And my dad was really excited about this. Now, keep in mind, I come from a place that if there's ice on the floor, that means you dumped your ice bucket. Okay? We do not skate on ice in Puerto Rico. At the time, we did not have any ice skating rinks or anything like that. I think there's 2 of them now, but I'm not sure. So I had never seen ice skating before. And I'm sitting there, and Dad's watching it on his recliner, right? And I'm like, what are they doing? I don't understand this. What is going on? And my dad simply says, the American team is playing a very bad team. And he's telling me this in Spanish. And I'm like, well, why are they playing a bad team? Why is even a bad team there? Shouldn't it be good teams that play? I mean, this is the Olympics, right? And my dad explained to me, and he said, well, this team is bad because they're a bunch of communists. But I didn't know what a communist was. So Dad had to explain to me, why this team was bad. And so we sat there, and I did not understand anything that was going on. I couldn't tell you what was going on or anything, but I could tell that my dad was excited because he lived in New York for a time, so he would go to hockey games and all that stuff. Well, he attended Fordham University, where he got his master's, and so he was familiar with the game. And so whenever he got excited, I figured there was something good going on, and whenever he got mad, I figured something bad was going on, that kind of thing. So that was the first hockey game that I ever watched. And when I saw, I think it was Jim who was the goalie, and he was given the U.S. flag, and he didn't know what to do with it, so he just wrapped it around his shoulders. And he was looking in the stands, looking everywhere, and I think he was looking for his dad. And so I'm watching this documentary, and they're talking about, how they came together, how Herb Brooks, recruited them and did all this, and then it was the exhibition game where they got their asses kicked by USSR, and which was something I didn't know had happened. And just watching these men who were boys back then talking about what for them became the greatest experience of their lives, an experience of a lifetime that will never be duplicated by anybody. And it was just, amazing to see their faces. And even, they even interviewed some of the Russian players. And it was really sad because at the end of the documentary, you find out that the coach never coached again. The Russian coach never coached again. The
probably
captain,
lucky for him, he wasn't just summarily shot. I mean, come on, we're talking about the Russians.
Yeah. That's exactly. So several of the players on the Russian team never played again. I believe the captain emigrated to the United States and became a hockey coach for a university. So there were different stories that they were talking about and all that stuff. And I was just like, it was an amazing night that I did not understand then what happened. But now I understand the impact and how big it was politically what this meant.
Well,
you
I
know?
mean,
And so
there's so many different layers to it, though, right? Because, like you said, everybody knew they got their ass kicked in the exhibition game, so nobody was expecting anything. And that's why this game you're talking about literally was dubbed the Miracle on Ice.
It really was. It really was.
And especially when it came out like years later that the Soviets had been doping and everything else, and we still managed to kick their ass. Everybody was like, "Holy crap!"
I know, and it was, and like I said, it wasn't even a medal game. It was to advance to the gold medal game, and you're asking everybody, is like, oh yeah, they were going for the gold, and I'm like, no, they were not going for the gold, and it was incredible because I can still hear Al. Michael screaming, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes, I still hear that in my head. I remember.
I still hear it too because one of the podcasts I used to produce for immediate release, that was actually part of their intro, and it was Al Michaels at the very end screaming, "Do you believe in miracles?" So yeah, every once in a while that still runs through my head. But yeah, I thought Al Michaels was going to stroke out that night.
Yeah, I was just like, he was screaming and and I'm like, why is he so excited? And I'm seeing everybody out there, and I figured it out before my dad said it. It's like, oh, they won. Okay, they won. Yeah. So it was, and then they went on to, they needed to defeat Finland. To secure the gold medal, and that was a really rough game as well, but it didn't have the political impact that the USSR game did. And in 1980, that was what was more important. It wasn't about the game, it was about the politics. So but at the end, when they're presenting the gold medals, only the captains are standing on the podiums and everything, and Mike Eruzione turns around and waves to all of them to get up there, because you all deserve it just as much as I do. And they all went up there, and all of them kind of fit into that small area of the podium somehow. They managed to get up on the podium, and it was glorious. It was really glorious. And if y'all have not seen that documentary, I highly recommend it. I think I've watched it maybe 25 times. Already.
The scariest thing is if we played that game today and Russia lost, there'd probably be riots in the streets.
Probably. Yeah. Sad, but true,
The Americans are a bunch of cheaters. Motherfucker, you're American. What are you talking about? Anyway, so yeah, that was in response to Danielle's comment. She's like, how much everything's changed since then? I was like, yeah, if that happened today, there'd be riots in the streets because Russia lost. Good God. Anyway.
It was Jim Craig. That was the goalie, Jim Craig. And he was the one that had the American flag over his shoulders. I remember now. Jack Callahan played for the Blackhawks, and I mean, it's just several of them went on to have very long, good careers in the NHL. Some of them just went into something else. They never played after that game, and others went into coaching. But it was really cool to watch that, and relive that little bit of my history, just coming to the States and never having seen anything like this in my short time on this planet. Because I was 1980. I was 13. So during that time. So, I didn't even know what ice skates were. So,
I was about to be 7.
But it was a glorious documentary. Highly recommend. 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up, all the way up. Yeah, actually, that was going to be one of my honorable mentions, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, it was. Do you have any other honorable mentions?
Several actually. Now we're gonna start getting into the series though. So, documentary series honorable mentions because they aren't technically like documentaries, but so one is Nova. Grew up watching that show with my dad every Saturday. Love that show. Don't really watch it much anymore, but I used to watch. Well, honestly, I only started watching it because my dad made me. But then eventually I started liking it. And then I don't know. At some point, it's got to the point where when I turned it on, all I could manage to do was fall asleep again. So, something about that voice, man. Then of course, more conspiratainment related docu series, Ancient Aliens. Gotta throw that one in there. Come on now.
I have to agree with something that Orty said in chat. Atari Game Over was a fantastic documentary. And I'm not even a gamer. And I loved it. I thought it was so cool to watch this. I mean, because I'm watching it from the point of view of somebody who does not play games.
Yeah.
And who's, I don't play video games. I know what they are. I have several of their music CDs because I enjoy the music, but
not playing video games might be grounds for us to revoke your nerd card, ma'am.
Okay, but I do know Richard Garriott personally, so do I get the card back?
Fine, I won't take your nerd card yet.
But no, at Atari Game Over, which was about trying to find the treasure of the E.T. game. It supposedly was buried somewhere. It had been trashed. They went and they were digging around. They were trying to figure out where these games had been buried because there was a rumor going around that it had done so badly and blah, 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 and all that stuff. It was grand. It was really neat. And it showed how somebody who was so passionate about the subject really took it upon himself to solve this mystery of whether or not this was a rumor or fact. And for me, it was completely enjoyable. It really was. Even those of you that do not play games or have absolutely no idea what video games are, this documentary is secondary to playing video games. It's actually a treasure hunt. And so I think a lot of people would enjoy it from that perspective.
I'm just still trying to figure out how hard it is to find Chinese food. I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, I do have one that was a series, and it was really interesting because the guy ends up confessing at the end of it. You remember the Jinx?
Kinda. I remember bits and pieces.
It was I guess it was like an entire season. So every Sunday they would run an hour or something like that or whatever. And it was you
are talking about the series that came out in like 2015, right?
Yeah, about Robert Durst.
Yeah, it was the Jinx, the life and death of Robert, life and deaths actually of Robert Durst. Because there's a couple of twists in there.
And at the very end, he's washing his hands, and it's a hot mic, and he actually confesses to the murder. Oops. And so the guys were caught in a really bad position because now they had the confession on film, but they could not. They had a contract that they had to fulfill, and so what do you do now? So you do what you go tell the proper authorities and tell them we can't go after him yet because they had a contractual obligation for the series and everything. So what do we do? And I think Durst was under surveillance for months, and everything. And once the last episode aired, the police moved in. But it was the most bizarre thing. I mean, I'm watching this documentary because my brother's like really into it, you know. So okay, I'll watch it so that we have something to discuss every Sunday. And sure, every Sunday after the night, I said, "So what do you think?" He's like, "Well, you know." So we start doing our own little theories and all that stuff. And my brother's like, "I think he's guilty." I said, "Oh, I'm pretty sure he's guilty." I'm just like, but you know, there's no way to prove it. And unfortunately, you know, some of the evidence was tainted. Some of the evidence did not jive, blah, 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 whatever. And so we're watching this, and it's the very last episode, right?
Yeah.
And I kid you not even 5 seconds after he confesses, my brother is calling me. So I put my phone on speaker, and he is screaming, "What the shit? Can you believe that just happened?" And I was like, no. They actually got really lucky with that hot mic. They really did. But that was actually a really interesting documentary because Robert Durst is a narcissist. He is the classic example of a narcissist. So he was very involved with this and was very flattered that this whole thing was going on. He was the center of it. And so he actually wanted to have creative control and all that stuff. And the guys were like, yeah, you know, fine, whatever. And this was years of interviews that they had with Durst and everything. But it was his narcissism that brought him down. And it was incredible to watch and to hear, you know?
So, couple points on this one. If you haven't seen it yet, it's available on HBO Max. So if you have your subscription there, you can watch it for free. Also, I don't know if you know this yet, Aggie, but there's going to be a part 2 coming out in 2024.
Get out! Really?
They just announced it a week ago.
What?
Yep.
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to have to call my brother and tell him part 2 is coming out.
Yep. I'm looking to see. I thought it said it a second ago when the release date was. Now all I can find now is 2024. But anyway. My browser's being silly. I think it's getting cranky because apparently I do have an ad blocker on here. I don't guess it likes it. Gotta forgot that I had one. Yeah, The Jinx Part 2. This is from MSN, so Microsoft News, I guess. The Jinx Part 2, Robert Durst true crime story returning with new episodes. And it looks like all we know for sure is it's going to be sometime in 2024. But yeah, they just put this story out like a week ago.
Interesting. And like I said, he's probably all thrilled about this because, yeah, he's sitting his ass in prison and everything. But it's all about him, so he's going to be cooperating and be.
He's not
trying to get creative.
He's not going to be doing anything. He's dead.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yep.
But you'll show, you know, I guess the I'm assuming correspondence, calls, and all that stuff will be accessed. They'll have access to all that stuff.
Yeah, I was looking to see because I guess the story broke on ET, but it doesn't have a date line on it. But yeah, apparently he's dead. It says Robert Durst.
Took long enough.
Robert Durst, the Jinx convicted killer, died at 78. Let's see. So he was convicted in September of 2015. So Robert Durst has died. He was 78. Durst was the controversial subject of the 2015 HBO docuseries The Jinx. In September, Durst was convicted of murdering his friend, Susan Berman, and later sentenced to life in prison. On Monday, Chip Lewis, I guess he died in January of 2022. So January 10th, 2022. So he's been dead for a bit.
Coolness. I'm okay with that.
Pitchforks, anyone? Oh, sorry.
Let's see. There's another series that was a docu-series, I guess, on the Negro Ball League. I forgot the name, but it was riveting. It was amazing to watch. And, I'm from Puerto Rico. We believe in the 3 Bs: boxing, basketball, and baseball. Those are our major sports over there. So whenever there's a baseball documentary or a baseball movie coming out, I'll watch it. And my family doesn't understand me. I don't go out of my way for baseball. But if there's a baseball documentary or a baseball film, I'm like right there. There are some exceptions, and I will get really, really angry at these exceptions. And one of the exceptions is The Natural, which is one of the most beautifully done films on baseball of all time. But Robert Redford could not use the ending in the book because he wanted to be the good guy.
Yeah, well, it is Robert Redford.
So the movie ends, like happily ever after. And I'm like, that's not the book. That's not the book. So I always get mad when The Natural comes on, but I'll still watch it because it's so beautiful. I love everything about that movie.
I was going to see if I could help you find the name, but apparently there's like 40 or 50 different docu-series about that.
I think it came out just a few years ago, and I think it was on HBO.
Maybe it's this one.
And of course, Ken Burns'
this is from
baseball.
This is from July 31st, 2020. So is it the one called The Century of Change? Maybe.
I think that's the one. The one.
Apparently there's a new one that just came out called The League Negro. That's a documentary on Hulu that's about the same thing.
Yeah, that's not the one. It's the other one that I watched. Ken Burns' one on baseball was absolutely fantastic. So, for a very non-sportsing person, I really dig the sports documentaries because they're not about the sport so much as the actual players and their lives and how the sport impacts them and the impact they have on the sport. So that interests me a lot more than the stats.
So not a big fan of the sports ball, but likes the sports ball documentaries. Got it.
Yeah, I really dig it. I think it's really neat. There was a sports documentary that I watched almost 15 years ago, I want to say, but it was in Spanish and it was made in Puerto Rico about Willie Benitez, who was one of the rising stars in boxing. And I remember him vividly when I was young. I believe he played in the Pan American Games, and he also went to the Olympics. I'm not sure about that one, but I know he was in the Pan American Games. But he took a severe beating, and it was really sad. He had pugilist dementia at a very young age, and his family took advantage of him, and he died destitute. And it was one of the most tragic documentaries that I've ever seen, because this man he was a rising star in the sport of boxing, and he could have gone far. But, sometimes tragedy will strike, and it did to him. And instead of having a good support system, both family-wise and sports-wise, they all conspired to take advantage of him instead. And it was heartbreaking to watch, and that's the other flip side of some documentaries. Some documentaries are not happily ever after. Some documentaries are not gotchas or anything like that. Some of them are extremely tragic and raw and soul bearing to watch. So that one was really rough. And I think my dad watched it once and he couldn't do it again, and he can watch anything, any Muhammad Ali documentary. He can watch any boxing documentary over and over and over again. Not that one. That one was just tragic. So, there are some documentaries out there that are just like, I just can't anymore.
So I do have two more honorable mentions. Well, one's a full documentary. The other one's more of like a documentary short. So first one, and both of these are available on YouTube for free, by the way. CERN, 50 Years of Science. Of course, going to bring up CERN, obviously. And then another one that I really, really liked on the same subject was Particle Fever.
What?
Yeah, it's called Particle Fever. It's a 2-hour about an hour and 40-minute documentary about CERN and them spinning things up.
Interesting.
Basically, it's kind of a day in the life of a particle physicist, I guess. Kind of thing. It was pretty fun to watch. I started watching it when we started doing the whole Mandela effect thing, because I was like, what? Because, I am a science nerd, but CERN is never really anything that I paid attention to. So I watched this to get, didn't actually mean to start it, but yeah, I watched it to kind of get a feel on everything. Yeah, I still think they've opened Pandora's box and don't even know it yet. I'm just saying.
Very cool.
So yeah, they actually filmed during the launch of the Large Hydro. You could see the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, the Large Hadron Collider. Yeah, it's like, it's kind of weird that they filmed it. I was like, really? But they did, so it's fun to watch.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm out of documentaries, and it's almost the top of the hour, so I guess we should wind it up. Did you have any other documentaries? I was going
to say, I'm not really out of documentaries, but I have more than 2 minutes. So. Oh.
No, I was, one of the ones that I want to watch is the one about Agatha Christie. Every time they try making a documentary on the 11 days that she was missing, it turns into a motion picture. And I'm like, I don't want to see a movie. I want to know what the shit went down when she was gone for 11 days. Why can't anybody just give me a documentary?
It wasn't actually
there's
her.
A couple out.
It wasn't actually her that came back, Aggie. It was an alien in a meat suit.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't doubt it. But I remember when Agatha was being filmed, it came out in the late 70s, and I remember the estate of Agatha Christie. She had passed away in 76. They were fighting to get this movie not done. They were trying to block the movie. But the estate has been okay with TV documentaries on her 11-day disappearance. But for some reason, they just don't like films being made of it. And I can understand why, because, they're sensationalized, they take liberties with the 11 days, what was she doing? I'm like, you know what? Bitch probably thought, I've had it. I'm going to go away for just a week and a half and just decompress. Back then, you didn't have a cell phone. You didn't have anything. You could leave and be gone. And nobody could find you. And then you would come home and it'd be okay.
Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie was the original Angela Lansbury. All of her books were true stories. I'm just saying.
There is speculation. Some people have surmised that during her 11-day disappearance, she was involved in helping to solve a murder. somewhere, but they don't, they have absolutely no proof to that. But somebody said, why don't we make a film about that possibility? And so they did. They made a film about that. Some people have surmised that she did not have a happy marriage at the time. And so she was having a fling with someone who was an MP, and they were trying to keep it secret. And so that's why she disappeared for 11 days, so that she could be with this guy or whatever. Other people have surmised that, who knows, she was abducted, replaced with Angela Lansbury. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So, but one of the things about Agatha Christie that I always admired is that when she begins to research a subject for her books, when she would research a subject for her books, she would become so immersed in that subject that she would actually become an expert in it. And she was the go-to for Mesopotamian archaeology at the British Museum. Can you believe that? I mean, I'm just like, first of all, the British Museum should burn to the ground. But I always thought that was kind of cool that she was the foremost authority on Mesopotamian archaeology, because she was writing a book called Murder in Mesopotamia. Okay. And so she, every time she wrote a book, there's always all of this detail about whatever the topic is, and in this case, it was an archaeological dig. So she went to digs. She looked at stuff. She, began to study the querns, the pottery, the colors, the dyes that were used to color the pottery, this, that, the other thing, to the point where when she would ask, who do I ask for, if I need to know about this particular thing, who knows about it? And everybody said, you know more than anybody else. So she was the go-to for the British Museum in that particular field. She actually knew a lot about heroin and cocaine dependency, because some of her books had characters that had, drug problems, So she needed to study how the overdose would occur and how much to administer for an overdose and the symptoms of an overdose and this, that, and the other thing. It got to the point where pathologists would bring her in as a consultant. I mean, that's how intense she was about researching her books. And to this day, those books, even though they are dated because they were written last century, they still stand up because of the amount of detail that are in those books. So it's pretty cool. I just wish I knew what she was doing for 11 days. Honest to God, she just probably went to a spa, had mani-pedis. She had the sea wrap. She had the mud dip. She had all of that shit going on. That's what I think happened.
No, she got herself involved in a murder investigation so she could steer them away from the prime suspect herself.
I wouldn't be surprised if she committed murder just to see.
I'm telling you
the steps, because this is what I tell everybody. This is what I tell everybody. The murder is actually not the beginning of the story; it's the end of the story. That is something that I learned from Agatha Christie. The murder was always the end. You have to figure out what leads to the murder. That's the story. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if that woman actually committed murder to see if she could get away with it.
Yeah, my 10th grade English teacher, Mr. Gardner, the disc jockey that I thought was like the coolest thing ever at the time. Because he had the quintessential disc jockey voice, and he taught with it too. All the girls in the class were like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. But anyway, he actually floated that theory. He's like, if you've ever looked into how she does her research, she is a method writer. And he even said at one point, I wouldn't be surprised if she actually committed a murder just so she'd know exactly what went into it.
I'm telling you, there are people that have that compunction, that have to know. And that was one of the things. There's a murder mystery writer who needed to know what it felt like to have a knife sink into human flesh. She went to a body farm okay, and asked permission to, the freshest corpse that they had, if she could, because she needed to feel what that was like so that she could write about it. And, they let her, the body's dead. So it makes for interesting conversation, to say the least. This is why I don't write murder mysteries, people. This is why.
Fun times.
Anyway, so I guess we should say good night to everybody. Rick, where can we find you?
Well, I'll because I'll be in Bricktown, there will not be a makeup episode of Juxtaposition this week. Because I will be probably not back home until about midnight or so. Loftus is doing 2 days in Oklahoma, and I definitely wasn't going to skip out on your day, so.
Oh, wow. So you're going to go see him?
Yeah. I tried to tell you about this in the chat. I was trying to get you to come up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I wish I could go. Damn it.
Everybody.
I have company coming this weekend anyway, so I'm screwed.
Yeah, no, it was really short notice. Hell, I didn't even find out about it until he tweeted about it. I'm like, how the hell am I one of the people that works with you, and I'm finding out from Twitter that you're going to be in Oklahoma City? What the fuck, man? He's like, oh, last minute gig from my agent. Sorry.
Is he? You better ask him if he's coming to Dallas or whatever.
He was in Dallas last night, dear.
Oh, he was, of course.
But that's what I keep. I keep telling him. I was like, you've got to get better about telling the people that you're connected with where you're going to be. Because I was like, if I would have had more than 3 or 4 days worth of notice, I would have packed the place out. Because I'd have just been calling everybody and be like, let's go.
I mean, he's a member of the green room, right? He's there.
He never comments in there, but yeah, he does occasionally. But I'm in a couple of different rooms with him because there's a planning room across all of our different organizations between Misfits and everything, and then there's one specifically for the Loftus party, and that's the one he spends most of his time in. But
okay, alrighty, but
yeah, so you can't really find me anywhere else for this week. Starting Monday, assuming I don't sleep through 3 fucking alarms again, there'll be a morning show though. Jesus.
Still, you slept in. That's a win.
As an insomniac, I can't really complain about the fact that I managed to sleep for longer than 2 hours and 30 minutes, but still. It was like, I woke up for the first alarm long enough to go to the bathroom, turn the news on. I was like, I'm just going to sit here for a minute and then go make coffee. And then I have 2 other alarms that are set just in case. And I didn't even hear the other 2. Then I have one to give me like a 5-minute warning to start wrapping up the show. That's the one that woke me up. And I was like, oh shit, that's not the right alarm sound. Oh shit, that's the 5 minutes till the show's over alarm. Guess I ain't doing that show today.
That's funny.
I've honestly half considered moving it to like a more of a mid-morning show, but then I'd be going up against people like Beck and everybody else, and it's hard enough to get people to listen early in the morning. Midday, they'd be like, who the fuck are you? I ain't listening to you. I got other people I can listen to.
I've given up trying to listen to Beck or anybody else. It's just, I'm in the middle of nowhere, so if you move it up, that's fine with me too.
I don't know. I may at some point. I don't know. Like, I've even thought about doing like an early afternoon show, but then I'd be competing with a couple of friends of mine in different markets, and I'm like, I don't really want to do that either. Well, it's weird the people that I've gotten to know over the years from doing this stuff. Anyway, so yeah, you can't find me anywhere till Monday morning, and then hopefully things go back to normal. Where can folks find you?
Well, you can find me at Aggie Weekend and at Aggie the Barkeep. Those are over on X. You can find me 8:30 p.m. Eastern Tuesday nights doing the Cocktail Lounge with the ever suave Brad Slager, and Friday nights 8:30 p.m. Eastern doing He Said She Said. With you keeping Mickey's seat warm, I guess. And once a month we do Toxic Masculinity, last Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern. And starting this Monday, hopefully, we're going to be launching our new book podcast. Jeff and myself will be your hosts for that one, and that will be 8:30 p.m. Eastern this coming Monday. So stay tuned for that one.
Wait, that Jeff guy has shows? I heard something.
That Jeff guy has shows.
Anyway, yeah. So I can definitely keep Mickey's seat warm. I cannot fill Mickey's shoes. Big,
I don't think anybody can.
Big swinging dude makes my feet look. Yeah, his shoes are clown shoes on me. I'm just saying. Anyway.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in with us.
Hey, I got you to crack up at least once tonight, so yay.
You did.